The kingdom of Zudara was a land of power and riches, stretching from the golden deserts to the lush riverbanks. Its capital, Velmora, was a city of towering palaces, grand temples, and bustling markets. People from far and wide came to trade, learn, and serve under the rule of King Zoran, a ruler feared as much as he was respected. Zoran had built his empire through war and strategy, defeating his enemies and claiming their lands. His rule was absolute, and he believed that strength came before emotion, power before love. To him, a king's duty was to control, not to care. He had one child, Princess Elara. She was the heart of Zudara, loved by the people for her kindness and wisdom. But Zoran saw her only as a tool for his kingdom's future. She was to be married to a powerful ruler, securing alliances that would keep his empire strong. But deep within the army ranks, a young soldier named Ravi had unknowingly caught the princess's eye. He was fearless in battle, noble in spirit, and unaware that his fate was about to change. As Zoran planned a grand tournament to find a suitable husband for Elara, she had already made her choice. But her choice would defy the king, break the laws of the land, and set events in motion that would change Zudara forever. Ravi had spent years training as a warrior in Zudara's army. He had no noble blood, no wealth, and no great family name, only skill, discipline, and an unbreakable will. Unlike many soldiers, he did not fight for power or gold. He fought to protect the innocent, to serve something greater than himself. His loyalty and strength had caught the attention of General Kaiden, the commander of Zudara's army. Kaiden saw something special in Ravi, something different from the usual power-hungry warriors. He took him under his wing, training him in the art of war and strategy. One evening, as Ravi practiced alone in the training grounds, a shadow approached. It was Princess Elara. She had watched him from afar, fascinated by his skill and the way he carried himself, not as a man seeking power, but as one seeking purpose. She stepped forward, her golden dress catching the torchlight. "You fight differently," she said. Ravi turned, startled to see the princess standing before him. He bowed slightly, but did not drop to his knees like most men would. That was the first time Elara saw the difference between him and every other suitor. That night, as they spoke for the first time, neither of them knew that their meeting would become the beginning of a forbidden love, one that would shake the very foundations of the kingdom. King Zoran announced a great tournament, inviting princes, generals, and noblemen from across the lands to compete for Princess Elara's hand in marriage. The competition would test strength, intelligence, and leadership qualities that Zoran believed defined a great ruler. Warriors and kings gathered in Velmora, each hoping to claim the throne alongside Elara. They boasted of their victories, flaunted their riches, and swore their loyalty to Zoran. But none of them had captured Elara's heart. Ravi stood among the watching soldiers, his hands clenched into fists as noble warriors fought for a woman who had no choice. His heart burned with silent fury, but he said nothing. That night, Elara sought him out again. "If you were in the tournament, you would have won," she whispered. Ravi shook his head. "The king would never let me compete. He would never allow you to choose me." Elara held his gaze. "Then we will choose for ourselves." With those words, they sealed their fate. Days turned into weeks, and Elara and Ravi met in secret, beneath the moon, by the riverbanks, away from the eyes of the palace. They whispered promises of a future they could never have. But love is never truly hidden. One evening, as they stood beneath the great willow tree outside the city walls, a shadow watched from the cliffs. Malgon, the king's closest advisor, had discovered them. A man who had always sought more power. Malgon saw this as an opportunity. He knew that exposing their love could place him even closer to the king's side, making him more powerful than ever. That night, he went to King Zoran. "Your daughter has betrayed you," he whispered. King Zoran's rage was like a storm that night. His daughter, a common soldier, defying his rule? It was an insult beyond forgiveness. Summoning his guards, he ordered Ravi's immediate arrest. "Elara will learn the price of defiance," he said coldly. Within the hour, the palace erupted into chaos. Soldiers stormed through the barracks, seizing Ravi and dragging him toward the great hall. Elara ran through the corridors, her heart pounding. She had to stop this. As Ravi was thrown before the king, the hall fell silent. "Explain yourself," Zoran demanded. Ravi, bruised and breathless, lifted his gaze. "I love her," he said simply. The king's face twisted in fury. "You will regret those words." With that, the fate of Zudara changed forever. Princess Elara ran into the hall, her heart pounding. "Father, please," she cried. "You cannot punish him for loving me." But the king only looked at her with disappointment. "You are a princess," he said. "You were born to marry a ruler, not a simple soldier. Do you think love is more important than the kingdom?" Elara shook her head. "Love is not a crime." Malgon, the advisor who had betrayed them, stepped forward and spoke in a low voice. "My king, this man is dangerous. If he dares to love a princess, one day he may try to take your throne." The king's anger grew. He pointed at Ravi. "You are a traitor," he declared, "but I will not kill you. That would be too easy." A cruel smile spread across his face. "You will be sent far away to the land of Darvok, where you will be a prisoner until the day you die." Elara gasped. "No, you cannot do this." Guards grabbed Ravi and began to pull him away. He looked at Elara one last time. "I will find a way back to you," he whispered. But as the heavy palace doors slammed shut behind him, it felt as if all hope had been lost. That night, Princess Elara sat in her chamber, staring at the moon through her window. Her heart ached. The love of her life had been taken away, and she had done nothing to stop it. She could still hear her father's angry words, the sound of the heavy doors closing, and Ravi's last whisper, "I will find a way back to you." She wiped her tears and stood up. She could not wait for him to return. She had to act. A soft knock on her door made her jump. It was Tarin, childhood friend, and the palace healer. Tarin had always been loyal to her, and when she saw the pain in Elara's eyes, she knew something had to be done. "There is a way," Tarin whispered. "Ravi has not left the kingdom yet. He is locked in the underground dungeons. If we move quickly, we can free him." Elara's heart filled with hope. "Tell me what to do." Tarin handed her a dark cloak. "We must leave now. The guards will change shifts soon. That will be our only chance." Elara nodded. She knew what she was risking. Her father would never forgive her if she helped Ravi escape. But she didn't care. She could not let him be taken away forever. With careful steps, the two women moved through the quiet palace halls. Every shadow felt like a threat. Every sound made Elara's breath stop. But she kept going. For Ravi. They reached the dungeon entrance, but just as they stepped forward, A deep voice stopped them. "Where do you think you're going, Princess?" Someone had been watching. Princess Elara's heart stopped. The voice was cold and sharp, filled with suspicion. She turned slowly. Her breath caught in her throat. A guard stood in the shadows, his sword glinting in the dim torchlight. His eyes narrowed as he stepped forward. "The king has forbidden anyone from entering the dungeons," he said. "Why are you here, Princess?" Taryn, standing beside Elara, thought quickly. "The princess is here under her father's orders," she said. "The prisoner needs medical care before his journey to Darvok." The guard hesitated. He knew Taryn was the palace healer, but something felt off. He glanced at Elara. "Is this true?" Elara forced herself to stay calm. She lifted her chin. "Would you like to question my father?" she asked. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled under her cloak. The guard frowned, thinking. Elara held her breath. If he didn't believe her, it would all be over. Then, after what felt like forever, he stepped aside. "Make it quick," he muttered. Elara and Taryn hurried down the stone steps, the damp air filling their lungs. The dungeon was cold and silent. The flickering torches barely lit the narrow passage, but Elara didn't care. She was close. At the end of the hallway, behind heavy iron bars, Ravi sat in chains. His eyes widened in shock when he saw her. "Elara," he whispered. She pressed her hands against the bars. "I'm getting you out of here." But before she could say another word, a second set of footsteps echoed behind them. Someone else was coming. And this time, it was not just a guard. Princess Elara turned sharply as the footsteps grew louder. A figure stepped into the torchlight. Malgon, the royal advisor. His sharp eyes gleamed with triumph, and a cruel smirk curled his lips. "I knew you would come," he said smoothly. "Love makes people foolish." Elara's pulse raced. Malgon had set a trap. Taryn stepped in front of her, trying to block the advisor's path. "Let us go, Malgon," she said firmly. "The princess is only doing what's right." Malgon laughed. "Right?" He gestured toward Ravi, who sat chained behind the bars. "This man is a traitor." "Helping him escape makes you a traitor too, Princess. Do you know what the king does to traitors?" Elara clenched her fists. She had come too far to turn back now. "You are wrong, Malgon," she said, her voice strong. "The only traitor here is you. You brought this news to my father not to protect him, but to gain power." Malgon's smirk faded. She had struck a nerve. Elara stepped closer, her eyes blazing. "You want me gone so my father will listen to you. You want to control him, but I will not let that happen." Malgon's expression darkened. He nodded to the guards behind him. "Seize them." Elara gasped as rough hands grabbed her arms. Taryn struggled, but she was outnumbered. Malgon turned to Ravi, shaking his head. "You were never going to leave this dungeon alive." Ravi's chains rattled as he struggled. "Elara!" he shouted. She fought against the guards, but it was no use. Malgon leaned in close. "Your father will decide your fate at sunrise," he whispered. For the first time, Elara feared she might never see the sun again. The first light of dawn crept over Zudara, painting the palace walls in gold. But inside the great hall, there was no warmth, only cold judgment. Princess Elara stood before her father, King Zoran, her wrists bound in silk ropes. On either side of her, guards held Ravi and Taryn, their faces bruised from the struggle in the dungeon. At the center of the hall, the king sat on his grand throne, his eyes dark with disappointment. The court was silent as Malgon stepped forward, his voice smooth and filled with false concern. "Great king," he began, "your daughter has betrayed your trust. She tried to free the prisoner. She was ready to abandon her duty, her kingdom, all for the sake of a common soldier." Elara lifted her chin. "I would rather betray my title than betray my heart." Gasps echoed through the court. The king's fingers tightened around the armrest of his throne. "You have shamed me, Elara," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "You are a princess. Your duty is to your people, not your feelings." Elara stepped forward. "My people are starving. They are afraid. And yet you spend your time punishing me instead of leading them." The hall fell into silence. Malgon's eyes flickered with anger. This was not going as he had planned. The king sighed heavily. "You leave me no choice," he said. "Elara, you will be sent away. You will live in exile far from this land." Elara's breath caught in her throat. Malgon smirked. "And the soldier?" King Zoran's eyes hardened. "He will be executed at sunset." Elara's world shattered. Princess Elara's body went cold. Exile for her. Death for Ravi. Her father's judgment echoed through the hall, sealing their fate. The guards tightened their grip on Ravi, dragging him toward the dungeon once more. He did not struggle, but his eyes remained fixed on her. Malgon bowed slightly, his smirk barely hidden. "A wise decision, my king. The people will see your strength." Elara felt rage boil inside her. This was not justice, it was cruelty, all because of a love that threatened Malgon's control. She turned to her father, her voice desperate. "You don't have to do this." King Zoran did not meet her eyes. "You have made your choice, Elara. Now I make mine." Terran, still held by the guards, whispered, "We won't let this happen." That night, Elara was confined to her chamber, her belongings packed for exile. But she could not think of herself, only Ravi's execution at sunset. Terran slipped into the room, her face pale but determined. "There is one last chance," she whispered. "The guards changing shifts, the secret tunnels beneath the palace. If we act now, we can get Ravi out." Elara's heart pounded. "But what about my father?" Terran shook her head. "He has chosen his path. Now we choose ours." Elara hesitated only for a moment. Then she grabbed her cloak and took a deep breath. She would not let Ravi die. As the last torch flickered in the hall, two shadows slipped through the palace walls, moving silently toward the dungeon. This was their only chance. But in the darkness, unseen eyes were already watching. The palace was silent, the night air thick with tension. Princess Elara and Terran moved swiftly through the stone corridors, their footsteps barely making a sound. They knew the guards would change shifts. Soon this was their only chance to save Ravi. The entrance to the underground dungeon was guarded by two soldiers, their spears resting lazily in their hands. Terran reached into her pouch and pulled out a small vial. "Sleeping powder," she whispered. "It will work fast." Moments later, the guards slumped to the ground, their breath slow and heavy. Elara didn't wait. She grabbed the keys from the soldier's belt and pushed open the iron door. Inside, Ravi sat against the cold stone wall, his hands bound in chains. His tired eyes widened when he saw her. "Elara?" His voice was hoarse. She rushed to him, unlocking the chains with shaking hands. "We don't have much time." Ravi stood, rubbing his wrists. "You shouldn't be here." "I won't let you die," she whispered fiercely. "Come with me." Terran peeked out of the cell. Then she froze. Footsteps. Loud. Fast. Approaching. Elara grabbed Ravi's hand. "We run. Now." The three bolted through the dungeon, their hearts racing. The tunnels beneath the palace led straight to the river, where a small boat waited. But just as they reached the exit, a group of soldiers blocked their path. At the front stood Malgon. His smile was slow, mocking. "Did you really think you could escape, Princess?" The trap had been set. Now there was nowhere left to run. Princess Elara's breath came fast as she stared at Malgon and the line of guards blocking their escape. Behind them, the dark tunnels of the dungeon stretched endlessly. Ahead, the only path to freedom was cut off. Malgon took a slow step forward, his smirk widening. "Did you really believe you could outsmart me?" he mocked. "Your father might be weak when it comes to you, but I am not." Elara's grip tightened around Ravi's hand. She refused to surrender now. She had not come this far just to watch him die. Without warning, Ravi moved. He lunged forward, grabbing a fallen soldier's sword. Before the guards could react, he struck, knocking the nearest one aside. Chaos erupted. Terran pulled Elara toward the side passage. "Go! Now!" she shouted. The guards attacked. Ravi fought with all his strength, dodging, blocking, pushing forward. But they were outnumbered, and Malgon only watched, his arms crossed. "Brave, but foolish," he muttered. Elara looked around desperately. There had to be a way out. Then her eyes locked on something, the wooden beams supporting the tunnel's ceiling. If they could collapse the tunnel, they could escape. "Terran!" she gasped. "The lantern!" Terran understood immediately. She grabbed the nearest torch and threw it at the beams. The flames licked the dry wood, and in seconds, the ceiling trembled. Malgon's eyes widened. "No!" The tunnel collapsed. Dust and stone fell between them and the guards. Elara, Ravi, and Terran ran through the exit, rushing toward the river and their only chance at freedom. But even as they escaped, Elara knew this was not the end. Malgon would not stop hunting them. The night air was cool as Elara, Ravi, and Terran reached the river's edge. A small wooden boat waited, hidden among the reeds. Behind them, the palace tunnels lay in ruins, the dust still settling from the collapse. Ravi pushed the boat into the water. "Hurry," he urged, holding out his hand to Elara. She hesitated for only a second before stepping in, leaving behind everything she had ever known. Terran jumped in after them, and Ravi grabbed the oars. The boat drifted into the dark waters, carrying them away from the kingdom of Zudara. Elara sat silently, watching the palace disappear in the distance. Her father had abandoned her. Malgon would hunt them. There was no home left for her, but she was not afraid. She turned to Ravi. He was her home now. "We cannot return," Terran whispered. "Where will we go?" Elara met her friend's worried gaze. Then she looked at Ravi, her heart steady. "Anywhere, as long as we are free." Ravi nodded. For the first time in days, he smiled. "We start over." The boat drifted toward the unknown, toward a land that had no kings, no chains, no rules. They had lost a kingdom, but they had won something greater: freedom, love, and the chance to write their own fate. Back in the palace, King Zoran stood at his balcony, staring at the river. He had lost his daughter, but deep in his heart, He knew she had chosen the only path she could. Malgon, however, clenched his fists in fury. "This is not over," he muttered. The hunt had only begun. The end? Or a new beginning? The river stretched endlessly ahead, carrying Elara, Ravi, and Terran, far from Zudara. The gentle waves lapped against their small boat, but none of them felt at peace. They had escaped, but they had not won. Elara sat quietly, staring at the dark water. She had lost everything: her home, her family, her title. But in her heart, she knew she had made the right choice. A kingdom ruled by force was not a home. She would rather be free with Ravi than be a prisoner in a palace of gold. Ravi rode in silence, his muscles tense. He knew that King Zoran would not let this go. If the king had declared him an enemy before, now he would stop at nothing to see him dead. Malgon would make sure of that. Terran pulled out a rolled map from her bag. "We must decide where to go," she said, her voice calm but urgent. "We cannot stay on this river forever." Elara leaned closer. The map showed lands beyond Zudara, some marked with powerful cities, others unclaimed and wild. She traced a finger toward the southern lands. Here, no kings, no rulers. Ravi nodded. "We can start over." But before they could plan further, Terran stiffened. Her eyes darted toward the riverbank. Something moved in the trees. A shadow, watching. "Elara," Ravi whispered, gripping his sword. They were not alone. Far behind them, hidden in the darkness, a second boat followed. The royal crest of Zudara gleamed on its side. The king's hunt had begun. The river's calm surface hid the danger lurking in the shadows. Elara, Ravi, and Terran sat motionless, their boat drifting with the current. But their pursuers were too close. Ravi gripped his sword tightly. "They found us." Elara's heart pounded. She turned her gaze to the riverbank. Between the thick trees, dark figures moved, their eyes locked on the boat. "Zudara's assassins," Terran whispered. "They won't attack in the open. They'll wait until we reach land." Elara looked ahead. The river narrowed up ahead, curving toward the mistwood marshes, a place known for thick fog and hidden dangers. If they reached the mist before the assassins attacked, they could disappear. "Row faster," Elara urged. Ravi dug his oars into the water, pushing against the current. The royal boat behind them moved faster. Torches flickered on its deck. They were gaining. Then an arrow hissed through the air. It missed Elara by inches, landing in the wood of the boat. A warning. "They won't wait anymore," Ravi growled. "They'll kill us now." Elara turned to Terran. "Do we have anything to fight with?" Terran pulled out a small pouch of powder. "Only this. If thrown, it creates a thick smoke." Elara's mind raced. They needed to disappear. She grabbed the torch beside her, dropped it onto the wooden deck, and threw the powder into the flames. A thick cloud of white smoke exploded around them, covering the river. Ravi rowed hard. The boat vanished into the mistwood marshes. But the assassins were still behind them, and they would not stop until Ravi was dead. The boat slipped deeper into the mistwood marshes, swallowed by the thick fog. The world around Elara, Ravi, and Terran turned into a maze of twisting waters and towering reeds. No light, no sound. Only the slow, steady drip of water. Elara gripped Ravi's arm. "Did we lose them?" Ravi kept his voice low. "Maybe, but they won't stop hunting us." Meanwhile, back in Zudara, Whispers of Elara's escape spread through the kingdom. The people began to question the king. Some believed she had betrayed her father, but others saw her as a symbol of something greater, a ruler who had chosen love over power. Among the soldiers, the murmurs grew louder. Not all agreed with King Zoran's orders. Some had fought beside Ravi and knew him as an honorable man. Would they kill a warrior like him just because he loved the princess? Malgon saw the unrest and went straight to King Zoran. "The people are beginning to doubt you," he warned. "They whisper of Elara as if she is a hero." The king's face darkened. "She is not a hero. She is a traitor." Malgon's eyes gleamed. "Then we must make the people see her as one. We must make them believe she is a threat to the kingdom." Zoran hesitated. Deep down, he missed his daughter. But he was a king first. "Do what must be done," he said. That night, Malgon sent word across the kingdom. Elara was now declared a rebel. Anyone who harbored her or Ravi would be punished. The war had not yet begun, but in the silence, the first spark had been lit. The grand halls of the Zudara palace had never felt so empty. King Zoran sat alone in his chamber, staring at the flickering candlelight. His throne, his power, his ruling of it brought him peace. His daughter was gone. The echoes of the past haunted him. He remembered Elara as a child, running through the palace gardens, laughing freely, untouched by the weight of the crown. She had always been different, more kind-hearted than a ruler should be. He had tried to shape her into a queen who would put duty above emotion, but she had chosen love over power. And now, because of his own stubbornness, she was an enemy of the kingdom. A knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. Malgon entered, his face unreadable. "The hunt continues, my king. The people have been warned. No one will shelter her." Zoran did not respond. He simply looked past Malgon, as if seeing something far away. Malgon hesitated. "Do not doubt yourself," he said. "She made her choice." Zoran clenched his jaw. "And what if I made the wrong one?" Malgon's expression darkened. "She is a danger to the throne. If she returns, she will not come back as your daughter. She will come back as a challenger." Zoran looked down at his hands. The hands that had once carried his daughter as a baby were now the same hands that had condemned her. "Find her," he said, his voice low. "But she must be brought back alive." Malgon's lips curled into a slow smile. "Of course, my king." But as he left the chamber, Malgon already had other plans. The mist finally cleared as Elara, Ravi, and Taran reached the far side of the mistwood marshes. The air smelled of fresh earth, the sky stretching wide before them. They had escaped Zudara, but their journey was far from over. Elara stepped onto solid ground and turned back to look at the river. Her past was behind her now. She could no longer be the princess of Zudara. Her father had made sure of that. But what did that mean for her future? Ravi placed a hand on her shoulder. "We are free," he said softly. Elara nodded, but freedom came with uncertainty. "We cannot keep running," she whispered. "We need a home." Taran unrolled the map once more. There was a valley beyond the eastern mountain, a land untouched by kings. Elara studied the map, then looked at the horizon. A land of their own, a place where no one ruled over them. She turned to Ravi. "We will build something new." Ravi met her gaze, determination shining in his eyes. "Nurse," he said, "but as people who have fought for their right to live." And so, they left the past behind and walked toward the future. Back in Zudara, King Zoran stood on his palace balcony, watching the distant horizon. He knew his daughter was alive. He knew she had escaped. And despite everything, a part of him felt relief. She had chosen her own path, but Malgon's eyes were filled with hatred. "This is not over," he muttered. "A traitor can never escape their past." As Elara and Ravi disappeared into the unknown, the first stone of a new kingdom was laid. The end, or just the beginning?